Welcome to the Artificial Fluency Podcast, where ambitious learners transform their language skills from functional to phenomenal. I'm Taylor, and today's episode is specifically designed for those of you who find yourselves somewhere between intermediate and advanced. Perhaps you're a strong B1 moving toward B2, or a solid B2 aiming for C1 proficiency. This unique position presents both incredible opportunities and specific challenges. You can communicate effectively in most situations, but you sense there are layers of sophistication, nuance, and cultural understanding that remain just beyond your reach. You want to express complex ideas with precision, engage in intellectual discussions with confidence, and command respect through your linguistic competence. Today, we're going to unlock that potential. We'll explore the sophisticated vocabulary that elevates your expression, examine grammatical structures that demonstrate advanced thinking, and develop the critical analysis skills that characterize truly proficient speakers. We'll also address the psychological barriers that often hold learners back at this crucial transition point. By the end of this hour, you'll have a clear roadmap for advancing your English from good enough to genuinely impressive. You'll understand not just what advanced English looks like, but how to develop it systematically and confidently. Are you ready to unlock your English potential? Let's begin this transformational journey together. Let's begin by understanding exactly where you are in your English journey and why this B1 to C1 range represents such a critical transition period. Many learners find themselves stuck in what I call the comfortable competence zone. You can handle daily life in English, but you struggle to express sophisticated ideas or engage in complex discussions. This stage is characterized by a fascinating paradox. Your receptive skills, listening and reading, may be quite advanced. You can understand complex podcasts, follow university lectures, and read challenging articles. However, your productive skills, speaking and writing, lag behind because producing sophisticated language requires a deeper level of mastery than simply understanding it. The gap between B1 and C1 isn't just about knowing more words or grammar rules. It's about developing what linguists call discourse competence, the ability to organize and express complex ideas coherently, to understand and use implicit meaning, and to adapt your language sophistically to context and audience. At the B1 level, you're primarily concerned with accuracy and clarity. Can you express your meaning without significant errors? Do people understand what you're trying to say? These are important foundations, but C1 proficiency demands more. You need to develop fluency that allows for spontaneous, complex expression. You need precision that enables nuanced meaning. You need flexibility that permits adaptation to various registers and styles. One major challenge at this stage is overcoming what I call the intermediate safety behavior. You've developed strategies that work well enough: simple sentence structures, basic vocabulary, safe topics of conversation. Breaking out of these patterns requires conscious effort and systematic practice. Another challenge is developing metalinguistic awareness, thinking about language itself. Advanced speakers don't just use English, they understand how English works, why certain expressions are more effective than others, and how to manipulate language for specific communicative goals. The transition from B1 to C1 also involves developing greater cultural and pragmatic competence. It's not enough to be grammatically correct. You need to be socially appropriate, culturally aware, and rhetorically effective. Here's what's exciting about your current position. You have the foundation necessary for rapid advancement. Unlike beginning learners who must focus on basic structures and vocabulary, you can now concentrate on sophistication, nuance, and style. Every conversation becomes an opportunity to experiment with more complex language. Every text you read provides models for advanced expression. The key is shifting from a defensive mindset, avoiding mistakes, to an experimental mindset, testing the boundaries of your linguistic capabilities. Advanced proficiency comes from taking calculated risks with language, pushing beyond your comfort zone, and gradually expanding your range of expression. Your journey from B1 to C1 is ultimately about developing linguistic confidence and intellectual sophistication. You're not just learning to communicate more effectively, you're learning to think more precisely and express yourself more powerfully. Now let's dive into vocabulary development that will dramatically elevate your English sophistication. At your level, it's not about learning more words, it's about learning better words and understanding the subtle distinctions that characterize advanced usage. First, let's discuss register awareness. The same concept can be expressed at different levels of formality and sophistication. Consider these alternatives for expressing disagreement. I don't think so, casual. I respectfully disagree, polite. I'm inclined to challenge that assumption, formal. Or that assertion warrants scrutiny, academic. Each serves different contexts and creates different impressions. Advanced vocabulary often involves understanding connotation and nuance. Take words meaning to criticize. Condemn suggests moral judgment. Critique implies analytical evaluation. Denounce indicates public disapproval. And censure suggests official rebuke. These aren't interchangeable. They carry different emotional weights and contextual implications. Let's explore sophisticated alternatives to common words. Instead of show, consider demonstrate, illustrate, reveal, manifest, or exemplify. Instead of important, try significant, crucial, pivotal, paramount, or consequential. Each alternative adds precision and sophistication to your expression. Academic vocabulary deserves special attention because it appears across disciplines and contexts. Words like subsequent, empirical, paradigm, comprehensive, implications, and constitute are essential for sophisticated discussion in any field. These words signal intellectual engagement and analytical thinking. Collocations become increasingly important at advanced levels. You need to know not just individual words, but how they combine naturally. We say mitigating circumstances, not reducing circumstances. We raise awareness, not lift awareness. These patterns can't be predicted from the individual words, they must be learned as units. Phrasal verbs present another layer of sophistication. While basic learners might say examine, advanced speakers naturally use look into. Instead of establish, they might say set up. Instead of postpone, they could say put off. These choices create more natural, native-like expression. Metaphorical language adds richness and sophistication to your English. Business discussions are filled with metaphors. Launch a project, navigate challenges, drive results, bridge differences. Learning these metaphorical patterns helps you participate more naturally in professional and academic contexts. Let's practice with synonyms that carry different levels of intensity or precision. Worried might become concerned, apprehensive, anxious, or distressed, depending on the degree of worry. Happy could be pleased, delighted, thrilled, or euphoric. This gradation allows for much more precise expression of meaning. Here's a crucial strategy. Start noticing how sophisticated speakers and writers express common ideas. When you encounter impressive vocabulary in context, don't just understand it, analyze it. Why did the author choose illuminate rather than explain? What effect does pervasive create that widespread wouldn't? Build vocabulary networks rather than isolated words. When you learn scrutinize, also learn scrutiny, scrutinizing, and under scrutiny. When you encounter phenomenon, make sure you know phenomena, phenomenal, and phenomenology. This systematic approach accelerates acquisition and retention. Here's your vocabulary challenge. This week, identify 3 basic words you use frequently and research sophisticated alternatives. Practice using these alternatives in appropriate contexts. Pay attention to how they change the tone and impression of your communication. Advanced vocabulary isn't about showing off. It's about precision, appropriateness, and effectiveness. Use sophisticated words when they serve your communicative goals, not simply because you know them. The goal is enhancement, not replacement of clear communication. Let's explore grammatical structures that will give your English the sophistication and complexity that characterizes advanced proficiency. At the B1 to C1 level, you already understand basic grammar well. Now we need to develop the subtle, sophisticated structures that allow for nuanced, precise expression. Advanced conditionals go far beyond the basic if-then patterns. Consider these sophisticated alternatives. Were the company to expand internationally, significant investment would be required. Formal inversion. Should you require assistance, please don't hesitate to contact me. Polite conditional. Had I realized the implications, I would have approached the situation differently. Past perfect conditional with inversion. These structures aren't just grammatically advanced, they're pragmatically sophisticated. They allow you to express hypothetical situations with varying degrees of probability, formality, and politeness. Let's examine subjunctive mood, which appears frequently in formal and academic contexts. It's essential that every participant be present, not is. I recommend that she take the advanced course, not takes. It's imperative that we all understand the regulations, not understand. This structure signals formal register and sophisticated language awareness. Nominal clauses add complexity and sophistication to your expression. Instead of the fact that he succeeded surprised everyone, try that he succeeded surprised everyone, or his succeeding surprised everyone. These structures allow for more elegant, concise expression of complex ideas. Participle constructions create sophisticated and economic expression. Having completed the analysis, we can now proceed with recommendations. Replaces the more basic, after we completed the analysis, we can now proceed with recommendations. Being unfamiliar with the protocol, I consulted the manual, is more sophisticated than because I was unfamiliar with the protocol, I consulted the manual. Cleft sentences help you emphasize important information while demonstrating grammatical sophistication. What concerns me most is the timeline, emphasizes your primary worry. It was the methodology that proved most problematic, highlights the specific issue. These structures show advanced control over information organization. Inversion for emphasis appears frequently in sophisticated discourse. Not only did the project succeed, but it also exceeded expectations. Rarely have I encountered such dedication. Under no circumstances should this information be disclosed. These patterns create emphasis while demonstrating advanced grammatical control. Complex relative clauses allow for precise economic expression. The researcher whose methodology we adopted has published extensively, defining. The proposal, which took months to develop, was approved immediately, non-defining. The extent to which this applies remains unclear. Abstract relative. Modal verbs become increasingly sophisticated at advanced levels. Instead of basic can and will, consider ought to, moral obligation, be bound to, logical necessity, be liable to, probability with consequences, would appear to, tentative conclusion, might well, reasonable possibility. Advanced speakers manipulate syntax for rhetorical effect. Compare the results were disappointing with disappointing though the results were, they provided valuable insights. The second version acknowledges the disappointment while pivoting to positive aspects, a sophisticated rhetorical move. Ellipsis and substitution demonstrate advanced grammatical control. Some students prefer lectures, others seminars, ellipsis of prefer. The first proposal was excellent, the second less so, substitution of so for excellent. These structures create elegant and economic expression. Let's practice with sophisticated ways to express cause and effect. Basic, because of the rain, the event was canceled. Advanced, owing to inclement weather, the organizers were compelled to cancel the event. The advanced version uses more sophisticated vocabulary and passive construction. Your grammar challenge this week is to choose one advanced structure we've discussed and practice incorporating it into your speaking and writing. Notice how it changes the sophistication and impact of your expression. Remember, these structures should enhance clarity and precision, not obscure meaning. At the B1 to C1 level, developing critical thinking skills in English becomes paramount. This isn't just about language proficiency. It's about using English as a tool for sophisticated intellectual engagement. Advanced speakers don't just communicate. They analyze, evaluate, synthesize, and create complex ideas through language. Critical thinking in English begins with questioning assumptions and examining evidence. Instead of accepting information passively, advanced speakers ask, what evidence supports this claim? What alternative explanations exist? What are the implications of this argument? These questions require sophisticated vocabulary and grammatical structures to express effectively. Let's explore the language of analysis. When examining arguments, we might say, the author's premise rests on the assumption that this assertion lacks empirical support. The evidence suggests a correlation, though causation remains unestablished. Notice how these expressions require advanced vocabulary and complex sentence structures. Synthesis requires even more sophisticated language skills. You need to identify connections between ideas, draw inferences from multiple sources, and construct original arguments. Consider, while Smith's research illuminates the economic factors, it fails to account for the social dynamics that Johnson's study reveals. This sentence synthesizes information from multiple sources while identifying limitations. Advanced speakers use hedging language to express appropriate levels of certainty. Instead of absolute statements, they use "the data suggests," "it appears likely that," "there is considerable evidence to support," "one might reasonably conclude." This demonstrates intellectual humility and analytical sophistication. Evaluation requires sophisticated judgment language. The methodology appears sound, though the sample size raises questions about generalizability. While the argument is logically consistent, its practical implications warrant further consideration. These evaluations require complex grammatical structures and precise vocabulary. Let's examine the language of academic discourse, which often serves as a model for sophisticated critical thinking. Academic writers use phrases like, "it is worth noting that." This raises the question of, "a closer examination reveals," the implications of this extend beyond. These expressions signal analytical depth and intellectual engagement. Critical thinking also involves understanding logical fallacies and biased reasoning. Advanced speakers can identify and articulate problems in argumentation. This argument commits the fallacy of false dichotomy by presenting only two options. The author's conclusion doesn't follow from the premises presented. This appears to be a case of correlation being mistaken for causation. Sophisticated speakers also understand the difference between objective analysis and subjective opinion. They use language to signal their stance. From an objective standpoint, in my subjective assessment, the evidence objectively indicates, my personal interpretation suggests. This metacognitive awareness characterizes advanced language use. Abstract thinking requires particularly sophisticated language skills. Discussing concepts like justice, democracy, or sustainability demands precise vocabulary and complex structures. The tension between individual liberty and collective security underlies many contemporary policy debates. This sentence demonstrates abstract thinking through sophisticated language. Critical thinking also involves understanding multiple perspectives and cultural viewpoints. Advanced speakers can articulate different positions fairly. Proponents argue that. Critics contend that. From a Western perspective, alternative cultural frameworks suggest. This demonstrates intellectual flexibility and cultural awareness. Let's practice analytical language with a current issue. Instead of saying, "social media is bad," an advanced analysis might be, while social media platforms facilitate unprecedented global connectivity, they simultaneously present challenges to privacy, mental health, and democratic discourse that require careful regulatory consideration. Your critical thinking challenge: choose a topic you care about and practice expressing your analysis using advanced language structures. Focus on evidence, alternative perspectives, implications, and nuanced conclusions. Don't just state opinions, build sophisticated arguments using the analytical language we've explored. Remember, critical thinking in English isn't about being negative or overly complicated. It's about using language as a tool for deeper understanding, more nuanced expression, and more effective communication of complex ideas. Understanding and controlling register, the level of formality and style appropriate to different contexts, is crucial for B1 to C1 advancement. Register mastery demonstrates sophisticated language awareness and social competence that characterizes truly advanced speakers. Academic register demands particular attention because it appears across professional and intellectual contexts. Academic writing favors nominalizations, turning verbs into nouns for more formal expression. Instead of, we analyzed the data and found significant patterns. Academic style prefers, analysis of the data revealed significant patterns. This creates a more objective, formal tone. Academic register also employs extensive use of passive voice to emphasize processes over agents. The experiment was conducted under controlled conditions, rather than we conducted the experiment under controlled conditions. While sometimes criticized, passive voice serves important functions in formal contexts. Professional communication requires mastery of diplomatic language. Instead of, you're wrong, professionals say, I'd like to offer a different perspective. Instead of, this is a bad idea, they might say, this approach presents certain challenges that merit consideration. These reformulations maintain relationships while expressing disagreement. Let's examine how the same message can be expressed across different registers. Casual, the meeting's at 3. Professional, the meeting is scheduled for 3 p.m. Formal, the assembly is convened for 1500 hours. Academic, the symposium commences at 1500 hours. Each version serves different contexts and audiences. Email communication provides excellent practice for register control. A casual email might begin, Hi, John. Hope you're doing well. A professional version, Dear John, I trust this message finds you well. An academic version, Dear Professor Smith, I hope this correspondence reaches you in good health. Each establishes appropriate tone and relationship. Hedging language becomes particularly important in professional and academic contexts. Direct statements can seem presumptuous or overly confident. Instead of, this will solve the problem, try, this approach may help address the issue. Instead of, the results prove, consider, the findings suggest. This demonstrates intellectual humility and appropriate caution. Technical jargon requires careful management across registers. In professional contexts, technical terms demonstrate expertise and precision. However, when communicating with broader audiences, these same terms can exclude and confuse. Advanced speakers can code switch appropriately. The algorithm optimizes resource allocation, technical, versus the system finds the best way to distribute resources, general. Discourse markers change across registers. Casual conversation uses, so, well, you know. Academic discourse employs, furthermore, consequently, nonetheless, moreover. Professional communication might use, additionally, however, therefore, in conclusion. These markers signal register awareness and sophistication. Cultural sensitivity intersects with register awareness. British English tends toward greater indirectness and formality than American English. I wonder if you might possibly consider British versus you should probably think about American. Understanding these variations demonstrates sophisticated cultural and linguistic awareness. Legal and administrative language represents an extreme form of formal register. While unnecessarily complex in many contexts, understanding its patterns helps with official documents and formal procedures. Pursuant to the aforementioned regulations might be translated as according to the rules mentioned earlier for general audiences. Let's practice register shifting with performance evaluations. Casual, Sarah's doing great this year. professional, Sarah has demonstrated exceptional performance this fiscal year. Academic, Ms. Johnson's contributions have consistently exceeded established benchmarks for professional excellence. Presentation language requires particular register awareness. Introductions might range from, "Hi everyone, I'm here to talk about casual," to "Good morning, I'm pleased to present professional," to "Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to address formal." Each sets different expectations and tone. Your register challenge this week is identify one professional or academic context where you want to improve your communication. Practice expressing the same ideas at different levels of formality. Record yourself or write examples at casual, professional, and formal levels. Notice how vocabulary, grammar, and tone shift across registers. Remember, register mastery isn't about always using the most formal language. It's about choosing the appropriate level for your context, audience, and goals. Sophisticated speakers match their language to their situation with precision and awareness. Advanced English proficiency involves understanding and using implicit meaning, what's suggested rather than stated directly. This subtle layer of communication separates competent speakers from truly sophisticated ones. Let's explore how advanced speakers navigate this complex terrain. Implicature, meaning beyond literal words, pervades natural English communication. When someone says, "It's getting late," they might implicitly suggest it's time to leave. That's an interesting perspective. Might diplomatically indicate disagreement. Understanding these implied meanings requires cultural knowledge and linguistic sophistication. Understatement and euphemism serve important social functions. "I'm not entirely convinced" often means "I strongly disagree." "We're facing some challenges" might indicate serious problems. "There may be opportunities for improvement" could suggest significant deficiencies. Advanced speakers both recognize and employ these diplomatic formulations. Irony and sarcasm add complexity to communication. "Great weather for a picnic" during a thunderstorm uses irony for humorous effect. "Thanks for the helpful advice" might sarcastically criticize unhelpful suggestions. These forms require cultural understanding and contextual awareness to interpret correctly. Indirect speech acts accomplish multiple functions simultaneously. "Could you pass the salt?" is technically a question about ability, but functions as a polite request. "I don't suppose you could help me with this" combines request with politeness and suggests the request might be inconvenient. These complex formulations demonstrate social sophistication. Presupposition involves assumptions built into statements. "When you finish the report, could you send it to me?" presupposes that you will finish the report. "Since you're the expert on this topic," presupposes expertise. Advanced speakers both recognize and strategically employ presuppositions. Pragmatic competence involves understanding how context affects meaning. Fine can express genuine approval or sarcastic dismissal, depending on tone and situation. Whatever might indicate flexibility or passive-aggressive disagreement. Context, intonation, and cultural knowledge determine interpretation. Let's examine how advanced speakers manage face-threatening acts, communications that might damage relationships. Direct criticism might become, "There might be room for refinement in this approach." Rejection might be softened to, "While I appreciate the offer, my current commitments preclude participation." These reformulations maintain relationships while achieving communicative goals. Diplomatic language serves crucial professional functions. I have some concerns about this proposal is less threatening than this proposal is problematic. We might want to reconsider our timeline suggests problems without assigning blame. Perhaps we could explore alternative approaches, opens discussion without rejecting current plans. Advanced speakers understand how to read between the lines in professional communication. We need to discuss your performance, signals potential problems. This isn't quite what we had in mind. Indicates rejection. Let's table this for now. Often means indefinite postponement. These interpretations require sophisticated pragmatic knowledge. Cultural variations in implicit communication create additional complexity. High-context cultures, like Japan and Arab countries, rely heavily on implicit meaning, while low-context cultures, like Germany and Scandinavia, favor direct communication. Advanced speakers adapt their style to cultural expectations and norms. Humor often depends on implicit meaning and shared cultural knowledge. I love having root canal surgery, uses irony because everyone knows dental procedures are unpleasant. Politicians and honesty go together like oil and water, uses metaphor to suggest incompatibility. These require cultural knowledge to appreciate fully. Let's practice recognizing implicit meaning in common expressions. We should do lunch sometime often means nice talking to you rather than a genuine invocation. I'll think about it frequently indicates polite rejection. That's certainly one way to look at it, suggests disagreement. Understanding these patterns improves communication effectiveness. Advanced speakers also employ strategic ambiguity when precision might be problematic. The project timeline is challenging. Avoid specifying whether delays are likely. There are various perspectives on this issue, acknowledges disagreement without taking sides. This diplomatic vagueness serves important social and professional functions. Your implicit meaning challenge. This week, pay attention to the gap between literal meaning and intended meaning in your English interactions. Notice when people say one thing but mean another. Practice expressing indirect messages diplomatically while ensuring your intended meaning is understood. Advanced English proficiency extends beyond linguistic competence to encompass cultural fluency and global awareness. As English serves as the world's lingua franca, sophisticated speakers understand its role in international communication and cultural exchange. Cultural competence involves understanding how different English-speaking communities use language distinctively. British understatement, not bad, meaning excellent, contrasts with American directness. Australian informality differs from Canadian politeness conventions. Indian English incorporates unique expressions and cultural references. Advanced speakers appreciate and adapt to these variations. Global English encompasses the variety of Englishes spoken worldwide. Nigerian English, Singaporean English, and South African English each contribute unique vocabulary, expressions, and cultural perspectives to the global English conversation. Sophisticated speakers recognize these varieties as legitimate and valuable, rather than deviations from a mythical standard. International business communication requires sensitivity to cultural communication styles. Germans value directness and precision. Japanese prefer indirectness and consensus building. Americans appreciate efficiency and informality. Middle Eastern cultures emphasize relationship building before business. Advanced speakers adapt their communication style to international contexts. Academic English serves as a global medium for intellectual exchange. Scientific papers, international conferences, and collaborative research all depend on shared conventions of academic English. However, even academic English incorporates cultural perspectives and assumptions that sophisticated speakers recognize and navigate carefully. Cross-cultural pragmatics examines how the same language functions differently across cultures. Compliments, refusals, apologies, and requests all follow culture-specific patterns even within English-speaking communities. "You look nice today" might be routine politeness in America, but seem inappropriate in Britain. Understanding these variations prevents misunderstandings. Let's explore how cultural values shape English expression. Individualistic cultures emphasize personal achievement. "I accomplished this project." Collectivistic cultures might prefer "we completed this project successfully," or "the project was completed through team effort." These differences reflect deeper cultural orientations. Gender, age, and social status affect English usage differently across cultures. Some cultures maintain formal address systems, while others quickly move to first names. Some emphasize hierarchical language, while others prefer egalitarian expression. Sophisticated speakers navigate these variations sensitively. Religious and historical contexts influence English usage globally. References to Christian holidays might be understood in some contexts, but not others. Historical allusions carry different meanings across cultures. Advanced speakers choose references and examples that resonate appropriately with their audiences. Technology and globalization create new forms of English usage. Internet culture, social media platforms, and global business practices generate new vocabulary and communication patterns that spread rapidly across cultures. Going viral, ghosting, and networking carry similar meanings globally while adapting to local contexts. Environmental and political concerns generate globally relevant English vocabulary. Climate change, sustainability, human rights, and global governance require sophisticated vocabulary and cultural understanding. Advanced speakers can discuss these topics across cultural boundaries while respecting different perspectives and priorities. Educational contexts vary significantly across cultures using English. British tutorial systems, American lecture formats, Asian examination cultures, and African oral traditions all influence how English is learned and used academically. Understanding these variations helps in international educational and professional exchanges. Let's examine how global events shape English usage. The COVID-19 pandemic introduced terminology like social distancing, lockdown, and flatten the curve that became globally understood. Climate change activism popularized terms like carbon footprint and sustainability. These developments demonstrate English's role in global communication. Your Cultural Awareness Challenge. This week, explore English content from a different cultural context. Watch British comedy, read Australian news, listen to Canadian podcasts, or explore Indian literature in English. Notice how language use reflects cultural values, perspectives, and communication styles. Consider how this awareness might improve your own English communication across cultural boundaries. Remember, advanced English proficiency involves not just linguistic sophistication, but cultural sensitivity and global awareness. You're not just learning a language, you're joining a global conversation that spans cultures, continents, and perspectives. As we near the end of our journey together today, let's focus on developing the self-assessment skills and goal-setting strategies that will sustain your continued growth from B1 towards C1 proficiency and beyond. Advanced language learning requires metacognitive awareness, understanding your own learning processes and strategically directing your development. Effective self-assessment begins with honest evaluation of your current strengths and areas for improvement. Consider these key competency areas: vocabulary sophistication, grammatical complexity, pronunciation clarity, cultural awareness, register control, and critical thinking ability. Rate yourself honestly in each area, noting specific examples of both achievements and challenges. Advanced learners benefit from portfolio-based assessment rather than relying solely on external tests. Maintain samples of your writing, recordings of your speaking, and reflections on your listening and reading experiences. Review these materials monthly to track improvement and identify patterns in your development. Goal setting at this level requires specificity and measurability. Instead of improve my English, set goals like incorporate 5 new academic collocations into my writing each week, or successfully participate in one professional discussion using advanced discourse markers. Specific goals enable focused practice and clear progress measurement. Long-term goals might include professional objectives like deliver a conference presentation with confidence, or academic goals like read scholarly articles in my field without dictionary assistance. These authentic, meaningful goals motivate sustained effort and provide clear benchmarks for success. Identify your learning style preferences and optimize your study strategies accordingly. Visual learners might benefit from mind mapping vocabulary networks. Auditory learners could focus on podcast analysis and speaking practice. Kinesthetic learners might prefer role-playing and interactive exercises. Understanding your preferences enhances learning efficiency. Develop strategies for autonomous learning that extend beyond formal instruction. Create personal learning projects like researching topics of interest in English, joining online discussion forums, or maintaining a reflective learning journal. Autonomous learning skills become increasingly important at advanced levels. Monitor your motivation and adjust your approaches when engagement wanes. Advanced language learning can feel less immediately rewarding than beginner stages because progress becomes more subtle. Celebrate small victories, vary your learning activities, and maintain connection to your ultimate goals. Seek feedback from multiple sources to gain comprehensive perspectives on your progress. Language exchange partners, professional colleagues, online communities, and formal instructors all offer different insights into your developing competence. Synthesize this feedback to identify consistent themes and areas for focus. Technology can support sophisticated self-assessment through language learning apps that track progress, speech recognition software that analyzes pronunciation, and online writing tools that provide grammar and style feedback. However, remember that technology complements rather than replaces human judgment and interaction. Regular reflection enhances learning effectiveness. Weekly reflection questions might include, what new language patterns did I notice this week? How did I handle challenging communication situations? What cultural insights did I gain? Where did I feel most confident using English? What areas require additional attention? Create accountability systems that sustain motivation over time. This might involve learning partnerships, regular check-ins with mentors, or public commitments to language goals. External accountability helps maintain momentum during difficult periods. Plan for plateau periods, which are normal in advanced language learning. When progress feels slow, focus on consolidation rather than acquisition. Practice using existing knowledge more flexibly rather than constantly seeking new input. These periods often precede significant breakthroughs. Your assessment and goal-setting challenge. This week, conduct a comprehensive self-assessment using the frameworks we've discussed. Set 3 specific, measurable goals for the next month. Identify the resources and strategies you'll use to achieve these goals. Schedule regular check-ins to monitor progress and adjust approaches as needed. Remember, becoming an advanced English speaker is a marathon, not a sprint. Consistent strategic effort over time produces dramatic results. Trust the process, celebrate your progress, and maintain your commitment to continuous improvement. As we conclude today's exploration of unlocking your English potential, let's reflect on the journey we've taken together and the path forward for your continued development from B1 toward C1 proficiency and beyond. We've explored the sophisticated vocabulary strategies that elevate your expression from functional to impressive. We've examined complex grammatical structures that demonstrate advanced thinking and cultural awareness. We've developed critical thinking skills that transform you from a language user into a sophisticated communicator who can analyze, evaluate, and synthesize complex ideas through English. We've mastered register awareness that enables appropriate communication across professional, academic, and social contexts. We've navigated the subtle world of implicit meaning and nuanced communication that characterizes truly advanced speakers. We've expanded our cultural and global awareness to appreciate English as a worldwide medium for international exchange and understanding. Most importantly, we've developed the self-assessment and goal-setting skills that will sustain your growth long after this episode ends. Advanced language learning is ultimately a self-directed journey that requires metacognitive awareness, strategic planning, and sustained motivation. Your English potential is not limited by your current level or your linguistic background. Every advanced speaker was once exactly where you are today. The difference lies not in natural ability, but in commitment, strategy, and persistence. You have the tools, the awareness, and the potential to achieve remarkable proficiency. Here's your commitment for the coming week. Choose 3 strategies from today's episode and implement them systematically in your daily English use. Whether it's incorporating sophisticated vocabulary, practicing complex grammar structures, or developing critical thinking skills, consistent application will produce noticeable results. Remember, unlocking your English potential is not about achieving perfection, it's about achieving sophistication, confidence, and effectiveness in communication. Every conversation is an opportunity to experiment with advanced language. Every text you read provides models for sophisticated expression. Every challenge you encounter strengthens your linguistic resilience. Your journey from B1 to C1 and beyond represents more than language learning. It's personal transformation. You're developing the communication skills that open doors to international opportunities, cross-cultural relations, and intellectual engagement on a global scale. Thank you for joining me on English Excellence. Continue to challenge yourself, celebrate your progress, and remember that your English potential is limitless. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep unlocking the sophisticated communicator within you.